Welcome to Project Review Committee for October 25th, 2023. We're going to go ahead and start today's meeting at 1:36 p.m. Welcome. First off, I'm going to go ahead and do roll call here from city staff, starting with myself, Oscar Cepeda. I am the Associate Planner within the Community Development. We're also joined by Jeff O'Neill, the City Planner. We're joined by Rocio Mejia, our Assistant Planner. We're also joined by Javier Sanchez, the Engineering and Project Management Director. We're joined by Michael Knight, our Public Works Director. We're also joined by Clayton Dignam, our Fire Marshal. We're also joined by James Wickersham, our Chief Building Official. We're also joined by Robert Alvarez, our Field Services Manager. And we're also joined by Joe Baeza, our Field Services Street Superintendent. We're also joined by Sarah Torres, our Engineering Department Representative. And I believe that is all from city staff.
Oscar, I would just add that David Payne has joined the meeting in my office as well, Water Utility Superintendent.
Thank you, Michael. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open oral communications. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the committee on any matter pertaining to project reviews. Seeing no members of the public here in person or online, I'm going to go ahead and close oral communications. So for today's agenda, we do have 3 items. We're going to go ahead and start with the first item, which is PRC 2023-039 for the Porterville Unified School District. The applicant is proposing the expansion of the Santa Fe Elementary School, which consists of construction of 2 new classroom buildings and a update to the parking lot. With that, I'm going to go ahead and start the comments from our engineering department.
Let's see. Thanks, Oscar. Let me pull up the.
And I'm also pulling up the plans. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so for this expansion, yeah, it's all on site, so we aren't really any comments from engineering since everything's on site. I imagine let's see, 800. I don't know if the buildings need any utilities, but I'd imagine they'd be extended from on site.
Yeah, that's correct, Javier. This is Walvin with Engineers. One of the main purpose to get this through the city for review is that we want to make sure that the city's okay with us connecting to utilities, mainly water, sewer, and storm. On the storm side, I was looking through some old drawings of this site, and it looked like the storm drain basin just to the north of this parking lot is seemed like it was designed to kind of take all the area already. So I guess our question is the city okay with us connecting to the on-site storm drain system and just continue the flow?
It is, yes.
Okay, and then that kind of leads me to my next question is, with the new construction general permit, things are much more difficult now as far as trying to get projects terminated with the SWIP. And so, does the city have any specific requirements on post-construction for us to be able to close out the SWIP later?
We're trying to get our MS4 items into compliance, but what we've been doing for now is just stating in a email or letter that everything complied with our storm drain system or our storm drain master plan.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense for this one because it's everything's flown to the terminus basin there. It's not really going to U.S. waterway, so I would feel like the city should be able to provide that if that's something that you see feasible.
Yeah, we could continue to do that.
Okay. And then as far as the other utilities, sewer and water, there's a couple lines that's down the alley on that plan there. It's kind of between buildings 200 and 300. There's water and sewer there already that we're planning to connect to. I think just a matter of the city being okay with that, and if there's any impact fees for additional connections like that.
Yeah, we would just look at the usage to see if it increased. Yeah, so there'll be some impact fees tied to the construction. But overall, it's all processing as far as any conditions that meet. That there aren't any. It's just during plan check we'll just handle the fees and any design details then.
Okay. Because like you mentioned earlier, there's really no off-site improvements to this, mostly on-site. As far as being able to enforce those impact fees, there's probably not even gonna be encroachment permit. Do you want us to just submit the plans to you guys anyways to assess the plan the fees or?
I guess the question is it gonna increase student count?
Hey, Brad, do you kind of have that answer?
Yes, it will. It'll add some UTK, TK, and kinder classroom space. Those classrooms 700 and 800 are going to be additional students will be available to be on this campus because of those classrooms. Smaller children, yeah.
Mhm.
Pre-K, kinders, and transitional kindergarten.
So this is going through DSA.
That's correct. Yeah, for building permitting and all on-site improvements is going through DSA for accessibility and fire. Really for the city, we just want to do a due diligence and make sure the city's okay with the with the project and also with the connections to the existing utilities.
Yeah, we can. The connection's not a problem, and we can have some further discussion on the impact fees, if any. Yeah, so that's all the engineering would have.
Thank you, Javier.
Mhm.
As far as the planning division, we're not gonna have comments on the project since it is a DSA project. With that, any comments from our fire department?
The only comments that I have are under local AHJ, Authority for Water Supply and Access. The existing fire lane is gonna need to be expanded so that we have secondary access point, or actually a third access point. Looks like potentially between the 700 and 800 building there. So essentially tying into that center fire lane. You referred to it as an alley, but I believe that's the fire lane. And that'll require NOx access and everything else will require NOx access to the buildings. And then this project may require the addition of fire hydrants and then work with us on placement of the FDC fire department connections.
Thank you, Clayton. Next with our building division with James.
Yeah, with this being a DSA project, no comments.
Thank you, James. Next, with our, Public Works, Department with, Michael.
Thank you. I don't think there's anything to address as it relates to refuse. I think everything is fine there. Just as going back, talking about connecting to sewer and water. We need to make sure that this facility has the irrigation separated from the domestic use. So we'll probably be having that conversation. All irrigation consumption needs to continue to be separate from the domestic use. And all the necessary backflow prevention would need to be installed as well. And the city standard meter would be applied to if it's a new service being installed, or just confirming the source supply and the metered service for the connection or extension. So we can work through that once we have a little bit more detailed plans, or we can review that on site when the project starts to progress. But those would be comments from Public Works.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's all the comments from the city departments. Is there any other questions from the applicant?
No, that's mainly our goal is to try to get some feedback from the city and see if there's any obstacles that we need to address before we proceed with the application to DSA as well. But we'll be sure to submit plans to the city as well to make sure the utility connections and details are meet city standards.
Thank you. And with that, we'll provide these comments in a letter to the applicant in about 2 to 3 weeks timeline from today's date. I would like to thank you for the application. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. So we'll move along to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 2. Which is a multifamily project located on Toma Avenue. Let me share my screen here of the site plan. All right. So for PRC number 2023-040, we have the applicant developer proposing a multifamily residential project consisting of 12 buildings with up to 55 units that would include a leasing office and recreational facilities. The subject property is located on West Toma Avenue, approximately 600 feet east of Prospect Street. The property is in the RM2 medium density residential zone district, and it also has a general plan land use of medium density residential. So as far as, we'll start with planning, department's comments. As far as the use, it is a permitted use of multifamily residential. It does have a zone district of RM2, but it does have a maximum density units per net acre of 15 units. The property is about 2.9 3-acre property. Depending on how much dedication may be required here on Toma for the right-of-way, we were calculating about 42 units possibly currently with the zone of RM2. It does not have a minimum unit requirement. But again, the project is proposing a higher density than what the zone district would allow. One question that we may have for the applicant is if any of the dwelling units would be affordable housing, or if it's all gonna be at a market rate. Our code does have a mechanism to for a bonus density if we're proposing affordable housing as part of this project. We'll provide those details in the letter, but you do have some options there to try to increase the density. Or even potentially, the applicant can propose an upzone for RM3, which could get you a higher density, which will be a public hearing and a discretionary process from our city council. Again, if the applicant would like to move that route, move in that direction. Any proposed parking complying with our chapter 304-10 parking area design and development standards. There is a bus stop here within half a mile of the project. So just keep that in mind for the parking requirements. Since it is a multifamily project within half a mile, then you can have a reduction per state law. Looks to me all setbacks. I do see the garage covered parking on the east and west property lines. We want to make sure that they're outside of the setbacks, which is minimum 5 feet. Looks like they are, but I do see some of the coloring within that. Just want to make sure that you meet that minimum of 5 feet. Also, the in our code, section 20104B1 for parking and garage frontage, which would be this here. It exceeds our 30%. So we would have to possibly modify that to be under 30% of the total frontage.
What is it?
30%. Our code under 20104, under supplemental regulation, state that parking and garage frontage on the total frontage of your parking cannot exceed 30%. Currently, I calculated about close to 50%. Of course, there could be ways to try to, you know, what's the word? Mitigate by possibly having a building here that would kind of reduce that area. And again, it's under 20104. Which says that the total frontage of parking areas visible from the street, including open parking, carports, and garages, but excluding underground parking and parking located behind buildings, shall not exceed 30% of that lot frontage. So we would have to be here a little creative. Possibly the building, the garage buildings, maybe moving it to the front here and just making it a residential structure instead of a garage would help you reduce that percentage on both sides. As parking, it won't be a.
So when you say frontage, are you talking just along Toma, or are you talking?
Yes, along Toma here. So you're at what, 329? And I think I ran the numbers. You're probably like around 160, 180 of frontage for that area. So again, we just have to reduce that to try to be under 30%.
You said 139 versus 160.
At 329 is the total frontage. And I wasn't really able to scale off the plans because they were not printed to scale. But I just kind of got about between 160 to 180 of parking frontage. We just need to reduce that for it to be at 30%, which is gonna be like 100 feet of, about 120 feet of that frontage.
So, so if we change the design and instead of having two entrances, just put one that splits off, that would accomplish. it.
Yeah, that could be an option for you guys is, yeah, by maybe placing the building here and maybe just having a pedestrian a walkway to eliminate this frontage from the total. And again, parking area frontage, you may be able to achieve that, but we would have to look at those numbers to verify. But yeah, that could be an option. Is to maybe placing a building here and moving that parking back or eliminating the parking as stated previously. That could be an option for you guys.
So big picture, what is that code trying to achieve?
It's trying to achieve having buildings, the primary view from the street being buildings as opposed to it being the parking areas.
Thank you.
And I think, and to add on to this discussion, we like this project. We like the way that the commercial combination, the entryway coming from the south. And as Oscar mentioned a minute ago, when he was talking about density, there are a lot of different ways that this could work really, really well. One possibility as it relates to that frontage parking issue is if those two northern buildings were oriented 90 degrees and then the parking area went between them and then to the north. Just thinking there's different ways to go about this and without you losing anything on the parking side or the unit side. So, but as you were just talking about too, even if one of those entrances was left open and the other one was closed off and had a building there, that would suffice as well.
Thank you. And with that also, buildings having orientation towards the street was another comment, not knowing where the orientation of the building is at this time.
Have you driven this area?
I have not recently, but I am familiar with that area. I could drop here the Google Maps guy for context.
Yeah, it's not the most desirable street in town to be looking at. But it's nice.
Yes, and
Right now, it's a homeless haven.
and it goes back to our development code for multifamily developments to have an orientation to the street. Developments shall relate directly to the adjacent street and present a pedestrian scaled entry with a residential character. A front porch, maybe the unit facing Toma with the front porch entrance would suffice that for that requirement.
We do have porches, which I guess would have a view of the street, but they face east and west, but you still look north and south from the porch.
Yeah, we could take a look at that, and then get you a more concrete answer once we take a look at the floor plan.
Yeah. So you brought up setbacks. So I don't know if now is the time to talk about it or
Sure.
when we get the fire, but so we took
I think someone might have left the meeting.
So we took a creative approach because right now we have a huge homeless problem. So if you zoom in and you look at that concrete block wall that's
Back there?
yeah, you go by there right now, so that shows one structure or tent. There's about 6 of them back there. And then the other place, if you zoom to the right, I'm not sure if it's gonna show anything. but to see where, yeah, in the back. Yeah. So that whole area right there is just full of tents and homeless people. We're constantly calling the police. I drove by there last night. I've done trespass orders like 3 or 4 times. And they just keep coming back. And it's a problem for the adjacent property owners as well. Throw all their, trash over the fence. It's crazy. And they go through there. I don't know where they're going, but you see the path right where your cursor's at. There's a path that's like very like, it was disc, and if you walk on that, it's like solid because there's so much traffic going across it. Anyway, we took a creative approach. What we want to do is build a block wall up on the property line. That way, the adjacent property owners don't have to worry about a fence getting kicked out and people going back and forth. But we don't want a 5-foot area where we have. It's like the perfect place to go hide or take shelter, which is the problem we have now. Because of those oleanders, they get inside of them, and then they can
Possibly with a block wall there, the oleanders can be just removed.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is put the block wall on the property line and build it out of non-flammable materials, and then take the actual studio apartments that are on top, slide those over 5 feet, run a steel beam or something across the top of the masonry to hold bear the weight on, and then get the actual living structure 5 feet away from the property line. So that's how it's drawn now. And we could build the units out of steel. I mean, we could do whatever we need to, but we're trying to push the garage portion, so have the block wall serve as the back of the garages as well as the fence in between the properties. So we're trying to do something a little creative to solve.
How tall are you gonna go with that block wall? And my only thing is that I'm thinking if you have this flat 5-foot across there, that's just a place to throw things and for stuff to stack and people to do dumb things. Maybe it's something that it's angled.
Yeah,
Covered.
angled and maybe with like a non-flammable metal roof or.
Just something.
Well, you
That
can't-
does create a void space
You
though.
can't drain water to your neighbors.
Unless they agree to it. Well, we could put some type of a catch,
On the planning
some type
side,
of a system to catch the water.
on the planning side, we do have that minimum 5-foot setback from interior side for buildings. We do have a mechanism in our code to get relief from the zoning administrator to reduce the setback 2 feet to possibly have a structure at 3 feet from the property line. But sounds like we're wanting to possibly propose the structure at 0 feet setback.
Well, structure would be
No, the
Fine.
structure would be, so the structure's offset.
They would connect.
Yeah, so it,
well, here's the block wall.
right, there's the block wall.
And here's
and
where
then
the structures
Clayton's
start.
talking about a
Yeah.
sloped roof,
At
and
the top,
But this is connected
the way they have it drawn, this,
horizontally to the top of the wall.
okay, so it's gonna be a projection.
and the
It's gonna be like an L,
top
top of the wall.
It can connect, under our code, we have projections not, extending more than 2 feet. It could be at 3 feet from the setback. So if there's a projection, it could be 2 feet from the property line, from the setback of 5 feet. So you could have a projection of 2 feet. So you could still have 3 feet from that to the property line. And that is under 20104.
Studio cantilevers over in the top of the garage there. So it sticks out a little bit offset, both, on both sides.
It'll be 300,
Be great.
300.01. Which states that, architectural projections. Would that be considered, the dwelling a part of the architectural projections, Jeff, in your opinion?
It could, I mean, self-sufficient.
But it does say, not to extend closer than 3 feet to any, side yard.
Right.
So it wouldn't be able to connect to the, block wall. It would still need to remain 3 feet from the block wall to that projection. While the base is at 5 feet.
Okay.
Well, this goes back to one of the other discussions. If, and Oscar had mentioned at the beginning, density bonus. There is a density bonus provision for moderate income housing. So it doesn't all necessarily have to be low income housing. And the reason I bring that up is because in addition to bonus to the density, you can request and receive concessions to things like development standards. So even if we determine that, yes, that it still has to be 3 feet away, if you get one of those incentives or concessions rather, it could be to waive that setback requirement.
Okay.
And we can, if that is of interest, we can discuss further the density bonus as it relates to market rate, or not market rate, but moderate income, and what that really means for you as the developer.
Yeah. Where can I access that?
It's in series 300, chapter 302 of our development code.
Definition of low income and
Yeah.
moderate income.
Yes, and I also have that in the letter that I'll be providing. Then I could email you after this meeting the link, that way you can.
Yeah, that way you can, I don't have to wait 2 weeks to.
But he can give you the government code reference, because that probably differs slightly from the city's code, and it would work out better for you, and that's what's controlling. So you can look at what the development code says plus what California government code says about it.
And it's gonna be government code section 65915. Thank you, Jeff. With that, other comments are just gonna be pretty standard for landscaping, any proposed parking stalls, make sure we meet our minimum dimensions. Trash enclosures complying with section 300.13.
We fit through the 3 bin
Yeah,
enclosures in there.
and then our field service department would verify if 2 would be adequate. Or would be the minimum required for the development here in just a moment. But yeah, that's gonna be pretty much our comments, and also one comment about the fencing. It could be block wall material. If you could go up to 7 feet, possibly 8 feet outside of the required front yard setback. Anything within the front yard setback, which is 15 feet, would have to come down to 3.5 or 4 feet, depending on the material. I did want to add that. But with that, I'll pass it along with our fire department with Clayton.
For me, it's project shall comply with the latest applicable codes, fire hydrants placed based on distance no greater than 300 feet. Where 2 or more hydrants are located, it has to be on a loop system. Depending on fire flow, additional hydrants may be required, standard comments. The hydrants must be in place and accepted by the fire department prior to any combustibles being brought on the site. project to meet the minimum fire code, fire flow requirements, fire sprinkler plans and calculations required, underground plans to be submitted with the above ground plans. Fire alarm monitoring plans, FDCs required to be within 50 feet of a fire hydrant in an approved location. Where the conditions permit, the FDC should be no closer than 40 feet from the building. This is where we kind of get into overlapping what they were talking about. You need to maintain 2 entry and exit points. I know you showed 3. However, again, because it was not scalable, I didn't really do the math. But essentially you have to take the diagonal distance of the lot and the 2 accesses that count have to be at least half that diagonal distance apart. So even if you kept those 3 right now, you have 2 because you have 1 up at the top and you have 1 down on the south, right? But let's just say hey, we're going to eliminate the 1 on the south. Those 2 up there may not qualify you, just depending on that measurement. So I really like the idea of having the access from the south, and that can be an exit only or a keyed entrance, to the development for the tenants. It's not
That was the idea, was that
Yeah.
it we're showing 3 and all 3 would have gates with codes
and I like that. So, but as they talk about eliminating stuff like that, I'm gonna require at least 2 access points. So that'll need to be a consideration. And then that's just how we calculate the distance based on the code. Any fire lanes in there or anything like that have to be marked, obviously signage, that kind of stuff. There's no stopping, standing, or parking in the fire lanes. Because of the way you have the circulation, there isn't gonna be a need for a turnaround. But for example, let's say you eliminated one of those up on Toma and we had that long stretch on, let's say the east side, for example. Because that extends more than 150 feet, there would need to be a turnaround down at the end. Or at some point in that, we would require a turnaround. So if you eliminate one of those and then you have a drive path that's more than 150 feet in length, we have to have a turnaround at the end. Address is posted on the building. Minimum of 20-foot roadways, unless there is plans for the eaves to be above 30 feet. If they are going to get above 30 feet, then the fire lane is 26 feet it's for a ladder truck instead of just a standard fire lane.
Say that again?
So if the eve is more than 30 feet high, the fire code requires that the fire apparatus access roads be extended to 26 feet instead of 20.
Okay.
Because it's so that we can put the outriggers and stuff out on a ladder truck. It just gives us more space.
Typically on a 2-story.
Yeah, you
don't
typically on a
get that.
2-story, you don't get that. And then Knox access required, obviously, on the gates. And if it's if it's just gonna be a leasing office, not too concerned necessarily with that, but if it's gonna have any type of community center or gathering room or anything like that, we'll want a Knox box on that place to be able to get in. In the event, for example, if they're having a party or something, somebody's there setting up and they have a medical emergency, but the door is locked, to be able to get in without kicking in the door. If you're gonna have a community room kind of thing,
Okay.
yeah. If it's just a sales or leasing office, I'm really not too concerned with that. But I'm more concerned if it's gonna be open to people to be inside.
And that's just the box that's mounted to the wall.
Yeah. And as we proceed, we can go through over and all that stuff and figuring out what's best, depending on the gates, whether they're electronic or manual or whatever.
What about a pool that has a gate, that has a coded entry?
If we can, if there's gonna be a key to it, then I would prefer that we have a Knox box. So whether it be on the building or on the gate to be able to get in there. Yeah, in the event that somebody calls, hey, there's somebody floating in the pool, can you get here and save them? We want to be able to get in.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of envision going through a gate to get into the pool area, and then just beyond that's the community room. So it's all kind of.
Yeah, so we can put we'll like I said, once we see the layout, we'll kind of, hey, let's put the Knox box here. It's the best location for us to put it. And also, I actually geolocate the box itself on a map for them. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, they just pull it up like, oh, it's right over here.
Okay.
So, but yeah. That's
What,
pretty much.
what's the fire code that this one would be under?
2022.
Um, it- It's like kind of 13 in it or something.
Oh, NFPA 13, yeah, so this will
Oh,
be
Fire sprinkler.
the fire sprinkler system, would be
Design?
the NFPA 13, should be 13R. And then the community center, just depending on the size of it, it depends on what that'll be a 13. So where you see that is if you go out on Pioneer, the new ones that were just built on Pioneer on the highway there. So in their residential units, it's all NFPA 13R, but they sprinklered the community building. It's an NFPA 13, and the difference is just the pipe. So it's being used and the design standard, but the piping is different there. They've got the steel pipe in the community center, but they allow the CPVC in the other. So
Okay. So R is more restrictive.
no, it gives you more
13 is more
flexibility.
restrictive.
13, the full 13 is the most restrictive, and then you have 13R, which is triplexes and above, and then you have the 13D, which is single family duplexes. And kind of on the, like we did on that project out there, we grouped the majority of the FDCs in one location. Just makes it easier at 2 o'clock in the morning to go to one location and know. So like on this project, I'm just kind of looking at it, we may end up with 2 locations, right? One on, if we keep the both of those entrances, we may put FDCs on one side on the west and FDCs on the east side, and then try to plumb them all to be close to each other and close to us in the hydrant. So. But we'll look at that one.
Okay.
Thank you, Layton. Next with building, with, James.
No, like Jeff said, we like the project, the design where you're talking about building off the wall. If allowed, would definitely have to be, an engineer design. Other than that, any comments that I would be during, plan review.
Thank you, James.
You know, they will have to be, adaptable. But that'll be during plan review.
Moving along with, Robert Alvarez, our field service manager.
We're gonna need some backflow devices on water service, fire suppression system. Separate the meter for landscaping. Looks like you got the bin enclosures. Depending on density, I don't know if that's gonna be sufficient. I think those are all the comments I have.
Thank you, Robert. Next with, Joe, with, our field service streets superintendent.
No comments?
Thank you, Joe. Next with Michael, our public works director.
Sorry, technical issues, trying to get off mute. I would echo the same comments as Robert, just evaluating the density. How many units for this development?
As,
55.
as proposed at this time, 55.
So that does increase it a little bit more. So usually the calculation on the bin enclosure is based off the density. So give me just a second here.
We're talking about the trash enclosures?
Yes.
So
Right now, we're showing 2, they're trying to calculate, see if that would be sufficient for the proposal.
So on 55 units, that would drive 6 3 bin enclosures. It's actually pushing 6.8, so we would just need to look at that. I don't see any trash enclosures towards the olive portion of the project.
There is one.
Just
right
the one there.
Yeah, it backs up to the
Oh, there it goes.
residential.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I didn't see that. So the driving number would look at 6 to accommodate the weekly service for the complex.
When you say 6, you're talking about the
6 3 bin trash enclosures.
3.
And we can work on that number a little bit. I mean, there's some fluctuation in there. The problem is when we deviate to make accommodations for a denser service area, then it increases the service. So whether being serviced once a week or being serviced twice a week or 3 times a week, it's just the goal is to try to minimize the amount of trips into the facility. And so we try to design for the standard of a 0.5 cubic yard of refuse per unit.
Has anybody done a design to double those enclosures up? Like, well, yeah, stack them from front to back.
We've had them doubled up lengthwise, so where they put 2 enclosures side by side. I've not seen them back to back. But that would be our comments in regards to the refuse service. It is a little deficient on the amount of coverage, and that would increase the amount of trips into the development. So our recommendation would look to try to accommodate 5 to 6 3 bin enclosures, depending on placement and accessibility.
Is there a location, Michael, where we would prefer those enclosures to be located?
Preferably a direct stab is better. So like the one down by number 9 at the bottom. I mean, those are both ideal locations. Anything you can put with a direct stab makes it easier for serviceability. Like the one at the front driveway, you know, the driver is going to have to pull the bins out to the center aisle, service them, and then put them back. But it doesn't mean that we won't. I mean, that's what we do. Ideally, just if we have the ability to coordinate a direct stab, that's preferred, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of anticipated that, thinking that we could move it from the north end to the south end. I think the architect was just trying to make it convenient for residents, so they didn't have to walk so far for those that are on the north end.
Yeah, absolutely.
But exercise is good, so I guess wouldn't be the end of the world.
Well, and with the need to increase the amount of coverage, you may end up having to put one mid block of the development anyway. And then Robert covered the importance of separating irrigation from domestic use and all the backflows. That should cover our comments.
Thank you, Michael. Next, with our engineering division with Javier.
For engineering, we'd just be looking at the frontage improvements there. Hopefully that curb and gutter is in alignment to allow the poles to remain. We will be implementing the parkway standard. It would be a landscape parkway with an offset sidewalk. Street lights there on the frontage. And then the pave out to tie all that in. Sewer and water are available. There'd be some areas on site that will need to retain drainage. And depending on what you can do with the design, there isn't storm drain nearby on Toma. You'd have to go out to Olive And there's a DI down there.
Would they be able to extend the line through the commercial development? Through here, Javier, possibly?
If there's enough depth on that lateral, or else you'd cut a new lateral in off the main. But you'd be crossing all the full width of Olive for that, or half of it.
So you said there's nothing on the Toma side?
No, it's an old county area, so just the water would just kind of spread out everywhere.
And that was for storm drain?
Right. Yeah, a certain amount will need to be on site, and that's, you can achieve that through depressed landscape areas, pervious concrete, underground storage, those types of things. But that's all the comments engineering would have.
Thank you, Javier. I believe that is all from staff on this project. Are there any additional questions on this one from the applicant? If not, again, we're always available to answer any additional questions you may have outside of project.
Just for record, this is just for the residential part.
Yeah, right now, yeah, this is just for the residential, and the third item on today's agenda is the commercial.
Oh, it is for sale.
Yeah, can you believe you
Pay
made
attention,
you
right?
made me pay another $500 for this next one?
Always. Yeah, so with that, we'll go ahead and pull up the commercial project here. Just, well, it's the same site plan. Here, just south of, south of the residential development. The applicant is proposing under PRC number 2023-041. A new commercial project consisting of 2 commercial buildings. One for a fast food restaurant with a drive-through facility, and a second building for a commercial building. The facility is located at 1098 West Olive Avenue. The property is within a commercial district, general and service commercial, and also has a general plan land use of general and service commercial. As far as comments from planning, both uses are permitted by right. As far as parking will be calculated depending on the usage. On the commercial side, is it gonna be retail or any office or just retail? But depending on the uses, we'll have different parking numbers. Of course, the parking area complying with section 30410, landscaping complying with chapter 303. Trash enclosures, I do see you're showing one as part of the commercial project, making sure the perimeter of that enclosure is landscaped. Any fencing proposed, making sure complying with 300.03. Signage, any signs proposed for the commercial project not exceeding 3 square feet of signage per 1 linear feet of building frontage. If it's a drive-through, we will want to make sure that you have a minimum of 6 queuing from the menu board. That way we don't have cars stacking up here in the back of this driveway. Again, we'll evaluate that as part of the signage, making sure that you meet that minimum. And again, we think engineering could possibly go more into this comment, but possibly having like a easement for the access to the residential project there in case in the future it does change of ownership, you already have that in place. An easement for access for the residential project on the north side. But other than that, you know, commercial, meeting our architectural minimums for the facade. You do meet setbacks. And again, complying with our minimum parking standards. Just a quick example, the restaurant would require minimum 2 spaces. But then depending on the seating area for the customers, will require 1 parking stall for 75 square feet of customer seating area. And if the commercial building is just retail, will require 1 parking stall per 250 square feet of floor area. So once we get a more final floor plan, we'll be able to calculate those numbers. Other than that, that's pretty our standard comments from planning. Yeah, and with that, I'll pass it along with our fire department with Clayton.
Basically for me, again, complying with all applicable codes, fire hydrant placement, no more than 300 feet. Was there gonna be talk about the circulation component
Regulation,
of the drive approaches?
yeah, that'll be brought up
Yeah.
by engineering.
So for us, there may be some discussion about the 2 entrance and exits there. And so for me, that just brings up the requirement for a potential turnaround or that kind of stuff
Within the project.
in the project, yeah. And then Knox access, UL 300, if you're gonna be doing grease laden vapors, obviously the restaurant, that should be a standard. Both of them, based on what they're proposing now, don't look like they're gonna require sprinklers. So, yeah, as long as there's no crazy use in that small commercial, it should be just fine.
What was it on the
UL 300?
restaurant?
The restaurant is a UL 300 compliant suppression system. Basically, it's the kitchen hood and a fire suppression system. It's whenever you're producing grease laden vapors. So, like, for example, Subway doesn't necessarily need one, but McDonald's does. Because they're frying stuff, so. And they got deep fryers and everything, so, and then just meeting the minimum fire flow requirements and everything. So, because they're not sprinklered, there wouldn't be a reduction in the fire flow requirements. So that also may drive an additional fire hydrant, just depending on location and everything else.
Where's the water line, the water mains and
all that.
right?
I can pull that up.
I think it's gonna be an Olive End in Toma, so it may be to go ahead and loop the system all the way through. The other thing is that gate you're proposing there between the 2 commercial and residential. There will need to be some type of recorded on the deed that is a secondary fire access to protect it in the future. For example, if these properties separate in the future, another person doesn't come in and just decide, hey, I don't like them coming through here. I want to go ahead and build a block wall. I'm gonna cut off that access. So we would need to record on those deeds that is a fire department access, just so that it protects it into the future. Fire extinguishers, that kind of stuff, just standard. So once we start seeing kind of your final design and layout and everything, then we get a scalable set of plans, we can start looking at hydrant locations and things like that. Like the Chevron across the street, they ended up having to put in a second hydrant, even though they had one on the Olive side. Because of the distance of their frontage, because they're on a corner, their frontage drops around the corner. And so it was more than 300 feet, they had to put a secondary second fire hydrant on the Cobb side, Cobb Street side.
Thank you, Clayton. With that, we'll pass it along with Javier in our engineering division.
All right, let me see. So here, the one main comment is that the site plan shows 2 access points, but with there being all with so many of them, we're gonna have a comment to just limit it to 1. Just to cut down on like short circuiting trips that somebody doesn't bounce out of one driveway into another and introduces more conflict points along Olive. And frontage improvements wise, curb and gutters there. And similar to the other side, it'll be the new standard, which is landscape parkway offset sidewalk. And
On the two driveway approaches, you're saying like take the one by the drive-through and instead of going straight out, bring it back over to the entrance exit there where his cursor's at?
Or if it shifts, if that drive approach shifts somewhere or it best serves the on-site circulation.
Yeah, we purposely put we played around with lots of different designs, but we purposely put the two-way in and out with a straight shot to the residential because of the traffic we anticipate. Coming in and out of the residential area. So it didn't affect the commercial. They're just passing through. But if I understand it, so we could take the exit lane from the drive-through and wrap it around and back out. That going the other way, coming out that way, and then instead of having that, if I understand what he said, instead of having 2 driveway approaches, just combine it into the one. Is that correct?
Is that what you're saying, Javier? Eliminate the west one?
Or one of them.
Either or.
Yeah.
Do they combine them more center in the property?
No.
The drive-through coming right in. For the exit for the drive.
Yeah, instead of well, that could stay 2-way, but it would be you're only using it to come into the park, and then it would turn into an exit only or one-way. But yeah, okay, that works for us.
And then Clayton, that entrance into the apartment is not required.
It may be required as a secondary access point for us.
Right, but it doesn't have to be required for the tenants. Right.
Well, it can be gated. He can put a
Right,
gate,
that's what I'm
a
saying.
key lock in there. So just for convenience, hey, I'm on Olive, I want to go home. I don't want to drive all the way around to the Toma side. There can be a key card entrance for them. That's fine. That's up to them. I don't have any
Yeah,
requirement.
we were
for
just
that.
doing it because it's gonna be preferred to come in and exit off of Olive in lieu of driving. Yeah.
go through the drive-through and then I wanna just drive right there, cause I live in that apartment rather than drive all the way around the block back to the complex.
Yeah, it wasn't out of necessity, it was out of convenience and design.
For me, it just. If there's a gate there, I just need access to that.
Thank you, Javier. Moving along with our building department with James.
No, it looked pretty simple, no comment until planner review.
Thank you, James. Next with Joe with our field services.
I have no comments.
Thank you, Joe. Next was Robert.
He may be in the other.
No, I got it. Backflow devices, installed for water service, fire suppression system, separate meter for landscaping and, domestic usage. And, I believe, you have the 3 bin enclosure, is that correct?
Yeah, they have it up here. They're showing 1 3-bin enclosure for the commercial.
Those are all the comments I have.
Well, they're gonna need to set it back a little bit for the landscaping perimeter.
I'm sorry, Oscar, what was that?
No, James was asking a question about, the enclosure. If it could be built at property line. Or would it require a setback? Our code for planning requires the perimeter of that enclosure to be landscaped. With the minimum of 3-foot landscaping planter. So at least we would need that 3 feet for that planter to be at the perimeter.
I'll go for the residential also. Right?
Yeah. Okay. I think we're good. Robert, next with Michael, if any comments?
I think we covered everything. Just a consideration on the commercial trash enclosure. I don't know that it warrants an additional 3 bin. But you may run into some issues with service depending on what's going on in the northern commercial building. You may look at adding an additional stall for maybe it's either an extra recycle bin or an extra general waste bin, just depending on what your uses are. I know in just a drive-through restaurant or a fast food generates a lot of cardboard. Although we're required to have the organics because of the food generation, tends to not generate a lot of waste out of the organics, but just a consideration. I think we've accomplished the goal with having the 3-bin enclosure in there. However, depending on the uses of the commercial facilities, you could run into some loading on the separate bins. So something to think about as we move through the uses of those facilities.
Thank you, Michael.
I did have a thought there, Oscar,
Yeah.
on the trash enclosure, definitely, for both projects, is the, accessibility path to them
Yeah.
from both, the restaurant and the commercial. Just keep in mind, you know, you can't walk behind any vehicles.
Go like this maybe.
Yeah, but to connect that drive-through, somehow you'd have to,
Like Wendy's has something similar, no?
well, but this has 2 buildings on 1 lot. Yeah,
would-
yeah,
It would be similar to what you have at McDonald's on Henderson.
yeah, I think, yeah, you hit it, Oscar, with Wendy's. The same thing with the apartments, you would still have to have accessibility to the trash enclosure.
Could I still work today? Yeah. The McDonald's on Henderson.
But looking at that on Brian's project, I was looking at the parking from the drive-through. Restaurant is to the north. Yeah, that one's not ideal.
I think that's what he's trying to, he's trying to not have that.
Yeah, you can't do that. But going back to Brian's site plan. Like from the drive-through, say parking stalls 1 through 5, somehow you would need to go through there to get to that, to get to at least the commercial, site, to get to that trash enclosure.
Some this down, dotted over across here.
Yeah,
Zigzag.
yeah, as long as there's, warning, detectable warnings, then it's not going behind parked vehicles, yeah.
Also, as you design those enclosures, making sure you maintain the separation between the sprinkler buildings, so you don't have the sprinkler and trash enclosures.
Right. Sprinkler the trash enclosure.
If you're close to the sprinkler building, yes.
If a second enclosure may be required, you can always try to fit it in this area. Down here, make it easier. Again, you may be able to reduce some parking stalls depending on, your floor area of your, restaurant, your customer seating area. You could maybe get flexible there. All right. I think that's all from staff. Are there any additional questions from the applicant on this, project here in the commercial side?
You said the parking would vary based on the usage.
Yes, on the usage, on the commercial building up top, I just provided retail, parking standards, 'cause I think that's what the application stated, which is one parking stall for 250 square feet of floor area. But on the restaurant side, it requires at least 2 minimum parking stalls. In addition, depending on how much customer, seating area you have. So it's gonna be 1 parking stall per 75 square feet of customer seating area. So the building might be 2,900 square feet, but how much of that is, seating area? And again, that could give you some flexibility there on maybe, reducing the number of stalls to, probably make it, work better.
Start with the math on the sitting area and then add 2.
Yeah, we'll require minimum 2. Let's say you have 0 seating area, you at least have to provide 2. But, so it wouldn't be 2 plus the 75 square feet. No, it'd just be
1 per 75 square feet of the
of seating area of the restaurant.
of the total building.
Yeah, because it's 2,900 and let's say, 1,000 square feet of that is seating area. So we'll calculate the 1 per 75 on that 1,000 square feet of seating area.
Oh, it's based on the seating area.
Seating area for restaurants.
Yeah, okay.
The retail side is floor area of the building, which is 1 per 250 square feet. Now, again, if you do a different use like office, then that's gonna be 1 per 200 square feet. So you do have some flexibility there depending on the usages of each, building. To, if we need to reduce a stall here and there.
So if half of the drive-through was the seating area,
Yeah.
that's 19.33 spaces, so 20 spaces, and then the other building is 2,800 square feet. Right now, we're showing it split in three, but I guess it doesn't matter. It's just total square footage, right?
Yeah, total square footage if it's all retail. Or let's say you do, you know, 2 retail stores and 1 office. Again, I'll go back to the,
So that would be 11.2 spaces.
Off-ground stalls 1 through 5 up top. Is there a minimum backup on an angle?
it's gonna be 20.
Let's go in there. Yeah.
15 feet.
Backup, space to that curve.
We have 15 feet. Is it 1 way or 2 way?
1 way.
One way angle.
Yeah, 15 feet. 15 and 18 if it's 60 degrees. It looks like it's, no, it looks like you're good.
My work truck's gonna just park wherever I want, and then I'll just put the magnets on it, and it's marked and good. Parking fire.
Yeah, it looks like you have 18, so that would be the minimum 18.
Yeah, minimum 18.
18, yeah. Which you show there.
Yeah, I think on the calculation, I think we're showing 30.
Parking stalls?
Yeah. My eyes aren't that good. I can't.
Close to it.
So that's on this calculation here.
Plus your drive-through stacking.
22.
Is that showing curb parking right here where it's labeled on the driveway?
On the driveway right there to the right, you've got 18, 19, 20, 21.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
4 stalls right
You
there.
have curb parking.
Yes.
Okay. I can see that.
And then I think when we eliminate, based on the calculations quickly, I think we were 1 shy. But whenever we get rid of that driveway approach on the west side, we should be able to pick up
Okay, yeah.
3 or 4 spaces there.
And then for your drive-through restaurant parking, there's how many total? Just for the drive-through? 20.
Um,
So you would need 188 stall plus access style.
And that may be that, see how 10 and 11 are split? That may be one of those is
And then you would
calculated
need
as that.
1 for the commercial. You would need 1 up for the commercial, yeah. And then you would, yeah, now I'm thinking about, now you need path of travel from the street. So you need an access point to the front door from the street. From the public
For
way.
the back
Public way,
businesses.
Would it be better placing the building down here, maybe?
I mean, if you run a straight shot from the sidewalk just to get
Just like this?
to the sidewalk, yeah.
What about the back businesses?
Oh, 4 feet.
So if we needed to, we could take 2 parking spaces.
I'm just thinking, are you gonna have that accessible path to travel across that drive-through entrance?
You would have to, yeah. Kind of like how Wendy's is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a path of travel from the olive sidewalk.
It starts from the olive side.
Like this one here, James, here?
Yeah.
Right, good, yeah. Somebody walking.
Sounds good. Any other additional questions from the applicant? If not, again, we're available here in the future if you, any other questions come up. We're always, available to try to answer those questions. With that, we're gonna go ahead and end today's project review committee meeting at 2:57 PM. I would like to thank everybody for joining us today and the applicant for providing, submitting these applications on the new commercial and residential development. Thank you.
Thanks.